What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pod Ones podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, a little bit special, because we got a new mini-series that released a couple days ago, Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, which is basically the Star Wars what if that people have been asking for, but in kind of a mixed up format, which is very interesting to watch. I'm excited to talk about it. I think there's a lot that happened in this series that's really cool. There's some very strange choices, but overall, it's an interesting thing that we got. I'm joined today by my co-host, Hereth Productions. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. We've had a pretty busy week with content. We've been going pretty much 3 days nonstop with a lot of people talking about a lot of stuff with Rings of Power, now with more Star Wars stuff. So we've got more to come next week. But also, returning to the podcast, we have Nick at ND Wise Guy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you guys about this.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on for this is because, unlike myself, unlike Hereth, well, at least to my own knowledge, I don't have any kids that I know of. Hereth doesn't have any kids, at least that I know of. You have kids.
If you were to believe Luke, I have about 80 of them. But yeah, I do have a kid. Yes.
So that's a perspective I definitely want to have, because the very, very clear target audience of Rebuild the Galaxy is children. Like there's no getting away from it. It is a kids television programming, the formatting, the pacing, the storytelling aimed at kids. So I guess the number one question, have your kids watched Rebuild the Galaxy?
Yes, we watched it together the day it came out.
Consensus. Not yours.
I was going to say, which child's consensus do you want? The grown one or the little one?
The little ones. We'll talk about the grown consensus later.
Little one loved it. You know, we always watch the Lego Star Wars specials when they've been coming out since Disney started doing Star Wars content. So they loved Terrifying Tales, Summer Vacation. This was the next one on the block. They loved seeing the differences of some of the characters that showed up. Some of them had to be pointed out, at which point they got even more excited about some of them. Overall, though, very much enjoyed it.
Going into the show, I think the way it was pitched, I was not expecting the formatting of the show to be what it was. I thought we were going to get like an episode where Darth Jar Jar shows up and he's taken over Naboo. And then we were going to get an episode where the Rebellion and the Empire had switched their starships. And these were going to be little stories that would take 15 minutes. And then we would move on to the next what if story through Lego. And that was not it. This was a whole mini series, a plot that had a beginning, middle, and end. And I think it worked out really well. Like, I think the story they told, I think the fact that it was new and original characters that were going through this mixed up little world. I really love the idea that Sig, the main character, who was voiced by the kid from Stranger Things.
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Like a lot of the voice actors in the show were the actual actors reprising their roles, and then the new characters were like well-established actors, which was really cool to see. But Sig, the main focal point of the story is like he's a Star Wars nerd, which is like I think a really fun. He's a Star Wars nerd that lives in Star Wars, and I think that's an awesome concept of a character. He just loves talking about what happened in the movies, or for him, what happened in real life to all his friends. And then he screws up. What was the thing he screws up?
Ewoks and
the Ewoks and the Wookiees. That's right. Yeah. And it's like, this is that I'm not a Lego person. Like I grew up playing with Legos, and then I kind of moved into models. So Legos have never been a thing for me. Like I would get like when my nephews and stuff were growing up, I would get them like Lego Star Wars stuff. Like I would go to Target and get them like stuff like here's an X-Wing, one of the X-Wings that are like this big and are like 12 pieces. And I would get them for that. So like it's always been there, but it's never my thing. I wanted the like Bandai like full scale, every detail that you would paint it in an X-Wing, because it looks like an X-Wing. And I've played the Lego games. They're not for me. I tried Skywalker Saga, and I got to the sequel trilogy, and I was just kind of bored at that point. Not because of the sequel trilogy, just because the game's not for me. So I was hesitant walking in to Rebuild the Galaxy of like, could be cool. I could be bored out of my mind. And luckily I wasn't bored out of my mind. I had a really good time. Hereth, how did you feel? Did you know that this was going to be a story? How did you feel with the story that we were given? And someone who I think has spent more time with Lego Star Wars than I have, how does this measure up?
Honestly, the same expectation as you. I thought it was gonna be like a almost like a Marvel What If anthology, where each episode was gonna be a different type of story that like maybe like we go back in time of how Sig screwed everything up, and like we go with the prequel era to the originals to the sequels, and like it was gonna progress naturally. I wasn't expecting it to progress forward and like characters getting shifted from one era to the next. Like I wasn't fully ready for all that. But on top of that, like, with the Lego angle, I didn't know really what to expect, because I was like, okay, so this is going to be What If to an extent. Like, how are they going to do the whole Jedi Bob with Darth Jar Jar and all this nonsense? Because again, I really avoided the trailers. Because like I was like, it's a Lego special. I'll watch it when it comes out, type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really pay attention to the marketing. I mean, I was surprised, because we knew that Star Wars was going to try a What If thing. Thank God it was Lego, not actual animation.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the way to do it. If they're, like they've done it, they can say they've done the What If thing. I do think if it was a Clone Wars, Rebels type of animation, I think it would hit differently, and I think in all the wrong ways. I think if you tried to throw like a dark side Luke Skywalker into Clone Wars animation, I don't think that would hit the same way that this did. I was like, when I started to realize what they were doing, I did have that moment of like, oh, this is interesting. This is a choice. And I think the decision made off. The one thing I will say, and this is, I think, a frustration that a lot of people have had with the most recent era of Star Wars in the past, let's say 3 to 4 years. This should have been a movie.
You know what? I was shocked that it wasn't. And
it should have been a movie. Yeah. There was maybe a couple scenes you could have tweaked or shortened up here and there. This could have been an 80 to 90 minute movie. And
which most of those Lego Star Wars ones have been. I mean,
yeah, like this could have been
all of that has been that way.
Yeah,
this could have been. I think this would have been a really, because if we look at like the landscape of films right now, right? You have Deadpool and Wolverine, you have Alien Romulus, you have Beetlejuice, you have Joker 2 in theaters right now. Sif Cinema, 4 blocks down from me, is playing The Shining for Halloween, and I'm like, you have Inside Out 2. That is like the only other kids movie. And I don't think that's in theaters anymore. I was like, this would have been an awesome end of summer movie experience for kids to go to. That's like the one thing that I really feel this series was like, people are itching to go back into the theaters for Star Wars. I think this would have been a great little welcome back, especially for kids. And I was like, not that I'm upset, not that I'm like frustrated with it, because at the end of the day, it's a Lego Star Wars thing. The implications aren't wildly severe, but I'm like, could this not have been a fun cinema experience? But I think
it could have been. You could have had Jedi Bob popcorn buckets, like Jedi Bob had popcorn buckets. You could have had a whole bunch of fun.
The state of popcorn buckets these days, I don't know.
It would have been a refreshing change to have just a nice. I mean, on one side, I could see a Lego lightsaber popcorn bucket. Well, that would be good too.
That would be cute, but I feel like most popcorn buckets have been a little adult in nature recently.
Yes, which would have been a good thing though, because like you said, this would have been a good way for kids to come in and have their own special popcorn buckets. Because I'm sure parents have been getting their own popcorn buckets and bringing them home.
The Dune and Alien popcorn buckets have been
The
very
Deadpool
suggestive.
popcorn bucket as well.
Yep,
Oh my god.
But yeah, I think like when I look at the state of like movies, because like even now, like the next big movie for me that's coming out is Terrifier 3, which comes out October 11th, and that is far from a kids movie. And I'm just like, where are the kids movies? So I think like Transformers 1 is like the only other, because there's also lots of other like the new M. Night Shyamalan movie is in theaters. There's a bunch of other like independent films that are coming out, but again, very adult in nature. There's just not a lot of kids movies out right now. So I think it's a very interesting choice that Disney made to make this a miniseries, not a movie that could, even if it was like a very limited release in theaters or something like that. But all that being said, I think getting into it episode by episode, because it's only 4 episodes and each episode is less than 30 minutes. It feels very much a return to form, to animated style, like the Clone Wars, Rebels and stuff like that. But episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Not really. We're kind of introduced to the planet Vanessa, which is where Sig and his brother Dev live, and they are actual nerf herders. It's a respectable profession, as Sig very often reiterates throughout the show. And I think that this little bit is like almost the entire premise of the show. These little bits and bobs that we've all known as fun Star Wars jokes brought to life. But I like the relationship between Sig and Dev, especially in the first episode, where Sig loves telling stories. Dev is this person who's aching for adventure, and it's almost setting it up that Dev's going to go on the adventure, but you kind of know that Sig's going to be the one that gets it. And there's a lot that I liked about this first episode that I almost wanted a whole series if the fandom were more comfortable with itself. This is something that since we've gotten things like The Bad Batch and Andor and Obi-Wan, where we're kind of getting these more deeper Star Wars stories, and it's like, hey, here's just some more nuance to the world around us. And I'm like, I want Star Wars to go deeper of like, could we do a story that's just like a rom-com in stories? You know, it's just a murder mystery in Star Wars. Mm-hmm. You know, could we have a slice of life in Star Wars? And again, if the fandom were more comfortable with itself and could understand and accept that like there will be all types of stories that we tell moving forward. Not everything is about the great Jedi adventure or the great smuggler heist. Like, it could be interesting to see a story of nerf herders on a planet like Vanessa, where it's just like, hey, you can have an interesting show. You can have a
Parks and Rec style.
Exactly. A Twin Peaks almost, like there's a little bit of mystery that's the Force that maybe the people of Vanessa don't understand, blah, blah, blah. There's someone who knows all the stories. Like, in my brain watching that first episode, I'm like, this would be an awesome standalone series. Yeah. And it's something that I hope as a fandom we can get to at some point.
It would be great. It really would be. I mean, I think, and I almost get that sense to divert a second from Skeleton Crew. Like, you're going to see that kind of day-to-day slice of life before those kids head off on their adventure. Yeah. And that's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know, with the state of trailers as they are, they basically, I think a lot of trailers for shows have just been showing like the first 2 to 4 episodes of the show within the trailer, and they don't show anything past that. So I think Skeleton Crew very much Goonies in space, but you're right. Like that slice of life, that middle class, unbothered part of the galaxy. Where does it go from there? And that's the thing that, like, man, I'm really excited for Skeleton Crew because of that. But with stuff like Rebuild the Galaxy, I'm just like, this is such an awesome concept. I like where Rebuild the Galaxy went with this, where this was going to be, let's have as much fun with this concept as possible. And I think they really went all out with the what ifs. I think just like every little aspect of it was great. But yeah, episode 1, like when episode 1 concluded, how were you guys feeling? Did you guys watch it all at once, or did you break it up?
We watched it all at once because the second that first episode ended, the child wanted immediately to watch the next episode once they realized it was there. I thought it set up the premise for what then came in the next 3 episodes so well. I loved the relationship between Sig and Dev, not just in this episode, but across the entire series. But this episode especially, it felt very lived in, that these were 2 brothers that were brothers. They made fun of each other. They poked at each other, but they were there for each other where it counted.
And I don't know if this is something from other Lego Star Wars stuff, but like the fact that in his Lego world, like his ability is just the ability to build Legos with his mind. He's a force builder, not like a force. I don't think they ever say force user. He's just a force builder.
Force builder.
Yeah, I think they call everyone force builders for the most part.
They're a
force
special sect of the Jedi Order.
Yeah, and then the Sith destroyers, and that's a cute. I think that's a very cute but very poignant way to distinguish the two. I think for kids watching this, I think it makes it very plain. There's no misconception.
Yep.
And I'm glad that they did this with the show, is that the Jedi were still the good guys. Even though everything is switched, the Jedi are still good. The light side is still the good side. The Sith are bad. The dark side is still the bad side. I think that was very smart, that they didn't try to do something super edgy where the Sith were the good guys.
Yeah.
It's just the characters had switched, which kind of leads us into the second episode. Where everything goes topsy-turvy, and I think we could just take time. Like everyone gets switched. Like in the trailer, we saw Darth Jar Jar. Everyone but one character.
But one character.
Leia is the only one that stays normal.
So I saw it was Dan Hernandez, who was one of the creators on this show. He saw a comment from someone who noticed that Leia hadn't changed, and he specifically said, "We felt that she would be a force for good in any galaxy." And I thought that was such a cool truth, because whenever we've seen Leia, whether as a little girl in Kenobi or through the original trilogy or into the sequels, her main goal was always to protect people. So to see that strength of character was remained unchanged, I thought was a really cool choice to make.
Yeah, I really like that, and it's cool to hear that from one of the creators, because I had, like I said, I was like, thinking about it when I saw her unchanged, and you get to the end and it's like she's still just Leia. I was like, this makes sense that like you can't change Leia. She's such an important and iconic character. You just can't change her.
Which I'm glad they put the stick in the ground, because I'm like this could have easily done. They could have done like a lot of legend stories and like the Star Wars Infinite comics. They could have easily done that. And that would have been boring as hell. So I'm glad they took the most interesting option out there.
Yeah, but with the exception of Leia, I do like her switch up is that she fell in love with Greedo.
That's great.
That was hilarious and adorable. And it serves later in the plot where Han is jealous of Greedo and he turns on the rebellion because of it.
I also love the joke of like he shot his shot first.
Yes, it shows the importance of shooting first, doesn't it?
Yeah. and it's definitely little things like that. And there's something I definitely want to get into kind of once we get through the episodes, but like the jokes that they throw and kind of the perception that a lot of people have had about this show that I've seen online. But just seeing, we knew we were getting Darth Jar Jar. Darth Ray, I think, was in the trailer.
Yeah.
Darth Rose Tico.
Where did that come from?
With Kelly Marie Tran voicing her.
Oh, it was Kelly Marie Tran. That's
yes,
great.
It was. Yeah, it was.
Kelly Marie Tran. I was like, there's no way. Because I think we saw white Darth Vader, which is great.
Call back to Star Wars Infinite.
Yeah. And we got Darth Kit Fisto.
Darth Nubs, baby.
Darth Nubs.
With D. Bradley Baker back as Nubs.
What that elicited the loudest reaction from my child when Nubs walked down the ramp of the Dark Falcon.
So are they Young Jedi Adventure fans?
Oh, very much.
Okay,
very much
awesome.
so.
Awesome. So that tracks. Seeing Darth Nubs. Yeah, I love that. I think the other one that got a really good cackle out of me was the Ewok bounty hunters.
Yes.
and the vine wrapped like starfighters, like that like, as someone who has on this podcast and other podcasts expressed my frustrations with Return of the Jedi and the Ewoks, I was like, this is great. I love this.
I also loved what got a cackle out of me. That sequence was Bounty Hunter C-3PO, like them playing on the whole like posters of Rise of Skywalker, where people thought he was going to turn evil and start shooting people. So I love how they played into that in like the what if.
He was great. I think the line he had, like, the odds of me not destroying you are like 3,465 to 1. Like, oh my god!
And not to mention, can we also mention Maul, the rebel operative? How awesome that was, and how
who's dressed like Lando?
Yes, and how like immediately suspicious Sig was when he saw Maul. I was like, that's Maul. No, we can't trust him. And he was the most honest one through the entire series.
And it was great. Is it Sam Witwer just delivering those lines the way he normally would with Maul? I really enjoyed it, and I think it's end of episode 2, maybe beginning of episode 3, when we get the Jedi Sandcrawler Temple, where it's all the Sith Lords that are now on the Jedi Council. You had Sheev Palpatine as the head of the council. You had
Grievous.
You had Jedi Grievous.
You have Dooku. You have Anakin. You have like, all the bounty hunters. You have like Cad Bane, Jabba the Hutt.
Jedi Cad Bane, Jedi Jabba.
Cad Bane, that was great.
Like. The things they pulled were so fun, and like, not that they were wildly consequential to the story, but it was like, oh my god, a good Jedi Cad Bane. Like, not only did they go what if, it was just like the most outlandish possibilities they could think of. The one thing, as Star Wars TikTok's resident Starship person, I was a little disappointed with the TIE Wings and X Fighters. I thought they could have been a little bit cooler, personally, but it was cool to see that concept of them switching them around.
Did you like the Mon Calamari Star Destroyers though?
I wasn't blown away because you don't see them for that long, and
Fair.
It's not the one I liked the most was the C-3PO Golden Nubian Cruiser. That one I loved.
In my head, that ship was named Goldenrod.
I could Wikipedia that right. But yeah, like I think that episode 2 was largely showing you all the wild stuff they wanted to do. I do think Darth Jar Jar coming out of the Dark Falcon did look cool. I liked the Dark Falcon.
Great.
That was a cool, because they didn't really change anything. It has a Death Star cannon, which was awesome.
I mean, speaking of like fun swap stuff, like not character related, I love like Tatooine turning into like a water planet, almost like Octo.
Oh, it's a beach resort. The Mos Eisley Cantina Marina.
The Mos Eisley Marina Cantina, where droids are welcome.
It was like it's like there's a lot of little things that they were doing like in the background that I was like, oh, this was great. This was awesome. And this is the thing that, not to go on like a tangent or anything, but like I think when people think of what ifs, they want to know like the serious implications of what if Anakin never went to the dark side and how that would change everything and what would it look like. And it's like, yeah, but also what if it was just like, what if Palpatine was a Jedi Master? Like, what if Cad Bane was, so cranky. Like, what if Maul was just a happy-go-lucky rebel operative? Like I find this infinitely more enjoyable than the endless theory crafting of if Qui-Gon would have lived, what would the galaxy look like? And I'm like, that can be fun to an extent, but like for me, that completely tears apart at like the entire fabric of Star Wars, where it feels like what Rebuild the Galaxy did was we're changing the fabric, we're not ripping it apart. And it's like it doesn't matter that this character technically wouldn't exist if this character was good or blah blah blah. It's just like things just got mixed up. That's all that happened. And I like that more. It's more fun. You get to play with more characters. You get to play with more events and themes when you do stuff like this. And I think this is one of the big successes of the show compared to just I'm going to be honest. I've not seen Marvel What If, but it seems a little more serious.
It is
very much so
than this was. And I think they play with those implications and stuff like that. And I'm like, I get it.
But Marvel What If it's different because like with superheroes in general, like there's the whole idea of like a multiverse and different universes. Well, yes, this exists in a different universe. Star Wars doesn't exist in that type of like medium. And I feel like
timeline.
And like with the way that the fandom is, I feel like if we did a traditional Star Wars What If, like, and we did these serious stories, they would be like, this is matter of fact, this is what would have happened. We're like, no, this is just fun fan fiction at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Well, and I like it too that it wasn't like a spin-off from a certain event. Like to your point, Chase, it was just we're just gonna hit reset on year 0 and see where everything falls into place.
Yeah.
And with how they've structured this, it allows them to do that again and again and again and again with what the MacGuffin was, for lack of better phrasing, in this series.
Yeah, I think the way they handled it was really, really good. I do think the way they did structure it with the story and giving us new characters like the people of Vanessa and then Jedi Bob is very interesting. And I think when you introduce new characters as vessels for that story, and then everyone you know and love is a side character, and very much there for fan service, like the clone troopers that are all Admiral Akbar. Like, it's great. They're just saying it's a trap.
It's
like,
a trap.
And it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to make sense. It's just fun.
Or Luke the pod racer.
Oh God, so good. Luke the Big Lebowski pod racer. Like,
did we all notice the Japor snippet?
Yeah, he has the Japor snippet on his chest. I really like that. I think it was episode 3, which we can kind of get into, is there was like kind of a cool moment where like Luke stays back and he's like, no, I have to talk to Vader and Leia, because they never learned in this timeline that they were all related. And it's one of those things you don't even have to see it. You just see the 3 of them huddled together and you know what's going on and where those characters are. And again, with Leia being completely unchanged, the amazing character that she is, it's like, I was almost like, we don't need it, but that's a conversation I would love to sit in on, is like good Darth Vader, good Luke Skywalker, still good. He's just way more radical. And then you have General Leia Organa, like talking about, hey, we're all related. Like we all have, we're a part of something. And I thought that was really cool. But I do think those original characters really, really did help. And I liked all the original characters. I did like that Dev became Darth Devastator. I thought that was hilarious. It was just one of those things that, looking through the eyes of someone who's a Star Wars fan like Sig, and like you brought up with Maul, is it's just like, that's Maul. You can't trust Maul. Maul's evil. And it's like, he's still stuck in his old galaxy. It's one of those things that, like, I think the way they carried the story with the new characters, and they made each of the new characters interesting and different, was cool, because I can't remember the character's name. The girl that they have a crush on.
Yessie.
Yeah.
Yessie. Yeah. Like the fact that she is also mostly unchanged. Like she's still on the good side. She's just she has a cause behind her now. I like that for her character. And she was great. And I do like that they kind of had a thing going on, especially towards the end. It was very cute, but yeah, like I think it's one of those things that leading up to the final episode, I do feel like episode 2 and 3 were kind of, let's just show you as many goofy things as possible, and then we're also going to move the plot along a little bit here and there. The base on Dagobah where they're all in the Andor prisoner outfit.
Yeah, Mace Windu and everyone just stuck in prison.
How disappointed Yoda is when Yessi shows up. Like, he's not excited that he's being rescued. He knows that he's having more people join him in prison.
Yeah. And then you have Han Solo turn on everyone. He's the actual scoundrel. But like, I think that in episode 3, that was the only time that I felt like, and again, it's so short and it was really more of a fleeting thought that like, it's like, okay, you're just showing us as many goofy things as possible. And we need to move the story along at some point. How were you guys feeling, let's say, between episodes 2 and 3?
I started to fall off around episode 3. I think I had it on while actively watching it, and then something happened on my computer, and I paused in the middle of 4 and started doing stuff, and then came back to it like 30 minutes later. So I kind of fell off between 3 and 4 personally, where I was kind of like I guess it's kind of same boat as you. It's like, okay, this is just, they're showing all the goofy things, just kind of move the plot along. Let's get things going. And like I said, I was having a good time with it. I just kind of found myself kind of drifting near the end of 3.
That's fair.
I mean, for me, 2 definitely, like you said, kind of seeing everything bounce around in 2 and seeing all the crazy things. It was kind of like, this is great, this is okay, yep, okay. Yep. It lost a little bit of its impact. I mean, I did enjoy seeing the Force Builder action in episode 2, where they're building the ship, or Jedi Bob is building the ship around them as they're trying to get away.
Yeah, that was cool.
I thought that was really cool.
And you can kind of see that he's building different parts of different ships in Star Wars.
You got the quad jumper engines, and I thought that was really neat. Yeah,
the AT-AT.
Yep. I mean, there were still moments in both of those episodes that, again, I think largely were to show fun stuff. But like, I do think that Darth Rey and Darth Rose, like, wanting to kind of turn on Darth Dev was like an interesting little plot twist. Like, that was cool to see. Like, I liked that. And it again, like, I think that overall, like, Rebuild the Galaxy was just so unexpected at basically every turn. Like, I think, again, 2 and 3, it got a little samey. Like, we've seen this, we get it. Everything's different type deal. But I think you have to drive it home and keep up the act and stuff like that. But I do think episode 4, like, I don't mean to like sound like that. I thought episodes 2 and 3 were bad. I had a great time watching all of this stuff. But I do think episode 4, when it really starts to focus more on like the cornerstone, and finding that Jedi temple and the showdown that we get between Sig and Dev, I think it really ramps itself back up, and it stops relying on all the goofy stuff. Which I thought was really cool, because I think episode 1 and episode 4 were very much self-contained in their own little storyline, and 2 and 3 were more of the everything's gone crazy and we want to show you everything going crazy. But yeah, that final confrontation I thought was really cool. Like, when they're fighting over the cornerstone, Sig, obviously a Mary Sue, never held a lightsaber.
Very clearly.
And is holding his own against a Sith Lord. But I mean, even stuff like Dev, like bringing him down to the rebuilt Finessa so that it's like what he thought it was. That was like he had wielded the power of the cornerstone. But, it's one of those things that like Sig realized that something was off. Like, it wasn't actually his home. And it's like these little moments that, like, I was like, when I saw that, I was like, this could be in a Star Wars movie. Like, this could be in a like full-fledged Star Wars movie of like dark side deception and stuff like that. And
I like to, in episode 3, and led immediately into episode 4, was the almost the twist that the name of the series wasn't what you were expecting because when it said Rebuild the Galaxy, I assumed, hey, okay, everything's been jumbled up. This story's going to be about them getting back to normal. Mm-hmm. And when you find out in episode 3 and into episode 4 that actually you can't go back. This is it now. And that the galaxy has actually been rebuilt. from a foundational level, I thought that was a really interesting twist, and it really, I think, to sound like it's a bit of a deeper thing than it was, it kind of informed the way Sig responded to when he went down to that rebuilt Vanessa and realized that I'm not going to get what I want.
Yeah.
And I thought that really hit home really well.
This is one of those things, and I feel like we can talk about it in a minute, but that whole revelation as the galaxy is going to become unchanged. Like he is stuck in this galaxy. You cannot go back to what we know as Star Wars. Number one, I'm so glad this was Lego Star Wars because, oh my God. Y'all want to talk about lore breaking? That was like, there was a part of me, like there's a part of my brain that like when that was like kind of the revelation that like the end of episode 4, when it's like, you're right, rebuild the galaxy and kind of like understand that, like, I think Sig understanding that like the Luke Skywalker he has lived a completely different life and you can't take that away from him. You know, they can learn that, yeah, Luke, Leia, and Vader are all related and they can build upon that. But you can't change their lives. You can't change who Han Solo is. You can't change Palpatine being a Jedi in this galaxy. Yeah. Like you can't make, you know, maybe it's one of those things like could Rey and Rose be redeemed from the dark side? Possibly, but that's their lives now. And like there was a part of me that was almost sad of like, oh wow, like they actually killed Star Wars, like legit, like Rebuild the Galaxy killed Star Wars, but it was in a fun, interesting way that taught a lesson to a character. And again, I must reiterate, thank God this was Lego. Because there was like almost a visceral reaction at the end of like, oh, in this universe, like Star Wars doesn't exist anymore. Like what we know as Star Wars is gone. And Sig's the only one that knows. Yeah. It's such an interesting concept. It's such a, like, I could see this working in a live action or canon animated event if this was a Ahsoka goes to the world between worlds and ends up in a different parallel universe and can never come back. And that's how Dave Filoni keeps her alive forever. But that's like the only way I could ever imagine this working in an actual like canon Star Wars story. But it's one of those things, like, I think, again, thank God it's Lego, but it works so well because it's Lego, because it gives them the freedom to tell these very interesting, very world-shattering stories. And I was really impressed with what they did, what they pulled off in the format they did and the setting and set pieces that they did. Like, this was a Lego Star Wars thing that, like, had real world implications. It had real world lessons. It had like multiple real world lessons, like the dark side and light side still being in balance, like redeeming your family and friends and understanding that like an imitation of what you want is not the same thing as the real thing, and accepting where you are, and then accepting that like, even though you're in a new place, like you can still make the good out of that. And I don't want to wrap it up just yet, but like your overall thoughts, like when credits rolled on episode 4, like what was the reaction?
I mean, I was still a little in shock at the Landalorian there at the end of episode 4.
That makes the most, the Landalorian.
The Landalorian.
You move one letter back.
I mean, I sat there and went, okay, there's got to be more, right? Because that, like, the way that ends, I mean, it sets Sig and Dev on the path that they're going to go on, and I'm sitting there going, okay, where's episode 5? Like, I want more of this story. Like, to your point,
they genuinely have to rebuild that galaxy.
Yeah, and like, I'm genuinely excited, and I genuinely hope that they get more episodes to do, because I really want to see where they go with this story. I loved the story, the through storyline of realistically whatever galaxy you're in, you just want your person with you, whether that person is your brother or, you know, another person in where you've grown up with, to just not feel alone. And I think that was a big thing that really keyed in for me with Dev's journey. Was Dev in the first episode talks about how he couldn't imagine doing anything without Sig, and then we see what happens to Dev when he grows up in a galaxy without Sig, and to see that kind of growth happen, and then start to see the positive influence that Sig had on Dev to start to bring him back, I thought was really cool and really powerful message to show how important family is, which I mean has always been a central theme through Star Wars, whether it's been with the Skywalker twins or with Anakin or any of it. Yeah, I want more. I want to see more of Sig and Dev's journey.
Yeah, I would not be against seeing a season 2 or a part 2 to this. Like, it's one of those things. Like, I would also be fine if they just left this as a quick little mini series that came and went. But if they, you know, 2 years from now said, "Hey, we're doing another Rebuild the Galaxy. We're going to continue Sig and Dev's journey," I'd be like, hey, I'm watching, like 100% watching this. Hereth, like, how overall, good, bad, mediocre, fun, not fun, great, the best thing you've ever seen?
To me, like, honestly, I wouldn't use the word mediocre. To me, it was just, it was all right. It was there. It was fun. I had my fun with it. But, like, I mean, if season comes out, sure, I'll watch it. But it's not like something I'm like, oh my God. I'm just like, it was fine. I got fun with it. I had my time with it. Like all the Lego specials where it's like, okay, this is funny for the minute. Let me kind of move on to Skeleton Crew. Let me get my kind of fix there. But if it comes out, cool, I'll go back to it. But it's not like something I'm dying to see.
Would you put this high up or low up on the other Lego Star Wars shows and productions?
I would put it like middle of the pack.
Okay.
Like, I still think I prefer like it's hard because they're also, they all kind of blend together in a weird way. Like the very first one with like the holiday one with like Finn, Rey is probably my favorite one. I think that one was they had the most fun with. Terrifying Tales was also kind of fun. And then I think I would put Rebuild the Galaxy like third. Am I missing any others? I think those are just the 3 Disney Plus ones at the moment that are currently.
Summer Vacation.
Summer Vacation, I completely forgot about, not gonna lie.
Which tells you where it would be on your ranking.
Yeah.
Okay, totally unrelated. I have not actually seen any of these outside of Rebuild the Galaxy, but you said frightful things. Anytime I hear any Halloween special, I'm just like, my brain goes, it's not Treehouse of Terror, so why would I watch it?
Here's why. Tony Hale as a voice in Star Wars.
Okay. and they're short, right? They're like, you said they're movies, basically, like short movies.
Yeah, I think most of them are like 45, maybe 50 minutes.
I mean, this isn't a spoiler, but Poe Dameron going into Vader's castle. Do you need any more?
All right. I can get behind that. Again, Halloween specials that are not called Treehouse of Terror, I'm just like, yeah, rip off. But yeah, like I would like a season 2 of this. Like, I'm not gonna hold my breath on this, but it would be a cool thing to see. It would be a cool thing to see Disney continue this. The one thing I did kind of want to talk about is I have seen discourse about Rebuild the Galaxy. And a lot of people like it.
Okay.
Which is good. But the thing that I think a lot of people have been pointing out online is a lot of people that are making videos or tweeting and doing their social media thing are like this is the best thing that Disney has put out in a long time. And it's just like because like a lot of us are so ingrained into the social media aspect of Star Wars that those types of complaints that we've seen with the sequels, the shows, the animated series, all of it, like when I watch a Star Wars movie, like those little voices come into my head when some ridiculous complaint gets brought up about whatever thing in Star Wars. I'm like, oh yeah, people complained about this. So I see it now. Like when I see that Sig is using the Force like with no training, and he can build things on his own. He's never been taught by anyone on how the Force. He goes up against his brother, who's a skilled Sith Lord now, and he's never held a lightsaber in his life, and he's fighting him. And I'm just like, man, people would hate this, and then everyone's like, "Oh, I love it. It was so good." And I'm like, what? What? And like, again, like, this is lore breaking, canon breaking, literally killed Star Wars at the end, like saying you cannot go back. Like, this is your new galaxy where Rey is a Sith Lord and Luke is a pod racer. Like, and I'm like, it's fun. It's hilarious in a lot of ways, but I'm like, this should rile everyone's feathers. Like, I find it so, I don't know if you guys have seen any of this, but it's been permeating into like my social media of like people I know that are grifters or grifter lights, like praising this show. And I'm just like, you're joking. You're joking. Like, this is very kiddie. It's not serious. And maybe that's like they have some disconnect because of that. I don't know. But like, it's been wild to see.
Yeah, I saw one video where the guy tried to use it as a means to dunk on the Acolyte, and past that one fairly quickly. It's like, if you're stretched that far for content, maybe it's time to find something new to talk about. But yeah, I mean, overall, I haven't seen a lot of negative stuff, and I think part of it is because it is Lego Star Wars. Like you said, thank God they did this in Lego Star Wars. Yeah. Because even if this was a half serious animation format, people would be losing their minds.
Yeah.
You know, like,
100%.
and so to hear that it's been like, not want to say universally, but more times than not, like, seen as a good thing, I think is great. I think it means that there's still some wonder left in these people, that they can actually enjoy it.
If I put on my pessimism hat, I think that some people are smart enough to understand that if they try to dunk on a Lego Star Wars show, like, people won't take it seriously. Like, the complaint would be, it's Lego Star Wars. Why do you care?
There's like a game to it.
Yeah, it's like, I think that a lot of people have pushed their luck. I think the bricks and screws thing was definitely like how far can I push this, and take a step back from there.
It was the definition of, I need to figure out how I can hate this thing while the show's good.
Well, I think it's where's the line method of like, let me put my toe over the line. That was clearly over the line. We haven't really heard anyone like that's been memeified. And I think people understand that there is a line when they want to rage bait, clickbait, complain online, that like, if I go on the internet and say that Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy was terrible, people are just going to come back and say, it's Lego Star Wars. Why are you complaining? Like,
or something akin to, you're a grown man, why are you watching a kid's show and complaining?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think that there is that limit for a lot of people who make that type of content, which I guess is good in a way. Like, it gives us a breath of fresh air to just enjoy something. Because I did enjoy, I enjoyed this a lot. I was surprised with how much I liked it. I think that, like what we talked about, some of the switch ups maybe overstayed their welcome towards the end of episode 3. We're like, okay, we're seeing basically everything switch up at this point. But it was still, it was still fun to watch, even with, it's like even by the end of episode 3, like, it's like, okay, Leia and Han seem pretty much the same. Which one's going to have the switch later on? Obviously it's Han.
Yeah.
But still, like, I am impressed. Like, I kind of want to go back and watch the other Lego specials now because of this, because I had such a good time with this. But I think that kind of wraps it up. I mean, unless there's any other parts of the show that you guys want to talk about or anything like that.
No, I think we've covered it. Yeah,
great. Yeah, it's short. It is 2 hours. Again, I think it would have been an awesome movie to go see, but it also, I think, worked great as a miniseries. So I walked away very satisfied, and I'm glad you got the chance to watch it. And I'm glad that you two came on to talk about it, because this was great. I'm glad your kids enjoyed it. That's great to hear. I can't wait in 3 years to hear how much they love Resistance. But yeah, thank you guys both for being here, talking about Rebuild the Galaxy. This has been great. I'm very excited. Hereth, I'll start with you. Tell me, where do I go on the internet to find you? What are you working on? What do you have going on?
Well, the good people can find me at Hereth Productions on TikTok and Instagram and Threads. And of course, you can find me here at the Pod Ones Podcast.
Amazing. Nick, what are you doing? Where can I find you? What's next?
You can find me on, I think, most social media platforms. I've got Threads. I'm still on Twitter for now, TikTok, Instagram at NDWiseGuy. I've just finished reading the latest High Republic book, Beware the Nameless, so I'm going to get a video up about that fairly quickly. As these guys know, I'm a High Republic nut, so I love talking about it. And I've also going to dip my toes into a little bit more Rings of Power as we get close to the end of the season, and then start hyping up for Skeleton Crew.
Nice. Yeah, I am excited for Skeleton Crew. Rings of Power has been great. But that being said, you can find me at Forward Into the Black on TikTok. I also have Threads. I don't use it. You could also see me every Friday talking about the newest episodes of Rings of Power with the voices of Arda. We have 2 episodes left, but I've been joined every week with Pete at Belmont Lord of the Rings, talking about the stuff, because I don't know much about Lord of the Rings, and they know all about Lord of the Rings. So I'm like, yeah, this is great. And they're like, actually, that broke a lot of lore. And I'm like, oh. But luckily, everyone's enjoying it. I'm enjoying talking about it. And you can see me here on the Pod Ones talking about more Star Wars stuff. We have a Star Wars Outlaws review up now, and we'll have a few little clips of that coming soon. But other than that, I'm excited for Skeleton Crew too. And we'll be doing some more content with our friend Bale, where we start watching spooky movies to prepare for Halloween. And then spooky movies as well. I'll be on One with the Films podcast talking about The Thing. Great movie. But anyways, that does it for this episode of the Pod Ones podcast. Thank you guys both so much for coming on to talk about Lego Star Wars. We will see y'all later.